Hi everyone, my name's Tiarne Hawkins and I am your host and moderator of today's epic panel. We're going to be discussing how artificial intelligence is reshaping entertainment. But with that, don't just take my word for it, I want to introduce our panel. Would Brooke Siegel from Yahoo please come up to the stage? Stephen Keller from SiriusXM Media, HP Siegel, who's been Amazon, Pixar, Waterfront, Silicon Graphics, and of course, Eric Pace from Cox Communications. So, let's begin, huh? We only have 37 minutes left to go because of that wild introduction. Thank you, my love. Would each of you introduce yourselves, your experience in the AI space, and just a brief overview of who you are and what you're doing today?
I'll kick it off. Hi, I'm Brooke Siegel. I am the VP of Content at Yahoo News. In that role, I oversee the curation of our content from our vast network of publishers, our original content team, which creates editorial across all platforms, and our commerce team. Previously, I was at Hearst Magazine's media, helping with the transformation from print to digital. And do you ask my interest in AI?
Let's go for it all.
I don't know. I think I am deeply interested and obsessed, but also it is foisted upon me in that I've always worked at the intersection of content and how it's consumed. AI is going to be very much a part of that in the future, and I want to embrace it. It's part of the reason I wanted to join Yahoo, because of the incredible opportunity to utilize technology and media that not all publishers have access to.
Love it. Steve.
I'm Steve Keller. I'm the Sonic Strategy Director at Studio Resonate. Studio Resonate is an in-house audio-first creative agency under the SiriusXM umbrella. So I work with brands that advertise on all of our platforms. When I tell people my title, Sonic Strategy Director, usually two things happen. The first is, it's a pretty cool title, which it is. But then the next thing I hear is, but what the hell do you do? And so the easiest way I've come up with describing my job is to say I'm in the business of taking sound science, blending it with sound art to help our partners and clients make sound decisions. So on the AI front, I'm definitely interested in the application, a little less on the operational side and more on how we might incorporate it into creative workflows. But given my background and my training in psychology and the behavioral sciences, I'm even more concerned with the implications of using AI and the impact on culture, diversity, community, and so this is a fascinating time to be part of such quick changes in the world, and I'm learning as I go, as most of us are, I think.
Yeah, like we all are. HB.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for hosting us. My name is HB Siegel. I started on the very early days at Pixar when it was first formed, and I had a chance to work at some notable companies. And Wavefront, we developed an animation system called Maya, which I was at the beginning of, and then Industrial Light and Magic as Chief Technology Officer, where I got to work on Star Wars, Men in Black, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, and some less notable films. Most recently, I was at Amazon, where I ran a group called the Department of Ideas, and we actually developed crazy new innovative ideas and shared them, and hopefully some of them became big things that will be exposed in years to come. And as far as my current interest in AI, I'm really fascinated by its intersection with storytelling and ideation and creativity and what roles it can play as a partner to humans. And hopefully that's some of the things we'll talk about.
Great. Eric.
Hey everybody, my name is Eric Pace. I'm working at Cox Communications today, and I am the head of AI there. I spent many years in Big Five consulting prior to joining Cox Communications, and then made the shift into industry, where I really had the chance to get to own a lot of the ideas and things that we were putting together. And then about 60 days ago, the company decided that we were going to put a lot more focus in the AI space, and we created a dedicated organization to the spectrum of governance to implementation for AI. And in the career, through consulting and a lot of the work that we've done at Cox today, there's nothing more disruptive than what AI is doing right now, and I have spent my career infatuated with the disruptive nature of whatever we can get our hands on. and now I feel like I'm in the greatest playground of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of the audience needs to participate in this next. Yeah, I'm also going to ask you some difficult questions. I asked ChatGPT to form the best question to ask you all which AI experience you would prefer. Imagine this, it's Sunday afternoon, you're sitting down to watch a movie or play a game. Which would you prefer? An AI-generated movie plot that adapts in real time based on your preferences? A personalized character, again, that has the ability to bond with you uniquely? An AI-driven soundtrack that has the ability to change sound based on your mood or your preferences? Or lastly, a fully interactive movie where you can pick the story narrative? A show of hands, who would prefer an AI-generated movie plot? Any hands? One person. Okay, two. All right. What about personalized characters? Okay. Wow, didn't expect that. AI soundtrack, personalized music. Woo, yeah. All right. And what about a fully interactive movie where the film adjusts along the way? Ooh, two, double hand. Okay, girl, I see you. Okay, so enough about that. Thanks for participating. I really appreciate it. I want to get into our first question. From each of your point of view, how do you see AI changing the shape of media, entertainment, and news for consumption for consumers today?
Yeah, I don't mind starting, given that the role that we play at Cox Communications, I think is foundational and spectacular. Primarily because we're the service provider network that allows content providers, creators, et cetera, to get their services, their creations into the hands of our customers. And so we have spent the last couple of years in particular, once we saw the surge of internet usage really and the consumption rise during COVID, we spent the last couple of years really infusing a lot of AI capabilities into the network that we put in place so that our customers can experience all of the things that media and entertainment ultimately delivers. And I think about that in three ways. There's the core network that ultimately delivers our services that has to have a ton of intelligence built into it just relative to the amount of data that we process and how much we have to ensure that the reliability of that network is at a level in which you can experience seamless entertainment. And then all the way into the second part of it, which is in your home, because once our network hits your house, then we don't have full control, but we have to be responsible for how the performance of the network or our internet in the home works as well. And the data that we can get off of the devices just relative to performance and signal strength also will benefit greatly from AI's introduction with our ability to process a magnificent amount of data. And then I'd say lastly, in terms of the actual customer experience and looking at customer preferences and thinking about a customer lifecycle in which from prospecting in a learn phase all the way through pay and serve, our job really is to go find all of the places in the customer lifecycle that we can apply AI to expedite the customer's experience back to the point that they want to spend their time in, which is using or interacting with the actual content. So there's a whole host of opportunity out there relative to where we can put AI. And again, going back to the excitement, waking up every day and having to choose where we're going to spend our time, given it's endless at the moment, is super exciting.
Yeah, just, kind of riff on that a little bit. Actually, just to call back to your initial question, I don't think I want the AIs to adjust their stories to me in real time. I want to see bold, interesting, unexpected stories with that surprise me. And that's why I'm such a fan of the South Korean movie industry, because they just don't care. They will, they will take that story anywhere. They'll kill off the characters and the main character in the first scene, if that's what they need to do. And I would like our industry, our Hollywood industry, to accept some of that boldness, and maybe AI can help bring that to us. Regarding what you just posed to us, I think back to early days and watching John Lasseter interview people at Pixar to become animators. And people would submit portfolios and ideas talking, I know how to use this tool, I know how to use this tool. And he would say, like, you can submit a portfolio with chalk and line drawings and pen, and we don't care about what tools you can use, because we can't teach you to be an artist, but we can teach you how to use the tools. And so I see people even today applying for jobs, filling their portfolio with a list of names of tools, and that's really not the way to go. You have to convince them you actually have an interior art skill and have that skill. So when I think about that, I think these tools are going to be enormously enabling for people to make a variety of very beautiful, very mediocre assets. And there's going to be a lot of them. So we're going to be swimming in this sea of candy of not very nutritious content for a while. And maybe the AI will be helpful in even sorting that out as well.
Yeah, I like that. Steve,
just to
please
build on that, I think that's why at Yahoo News it's so important that it's AI and editors working together to find that balance, to make sure that the content is exceptional as it can be. And it is, I think, that partnership that is going to enable us to really personalize the content in a way that's not just, you talk about the empty, I don't know if you called it empty calories, I'm going to call it empty calories, or like the candy that you could feed, and you want to give the people what they want, but sometimes that is going to be empty calories. And you need to balance that need to know and what to know, right? Like what you want to know might be the empty calories, but then you have the editorial perspective layered on top of that is going to give you what's happening in the world and what's important, and you really need the balance and the marriage of those two.
Well, I think in my world in audio, I mean, AI has been a part of it for a while. If you think of the digital streaming services that use AI as part of playlists, Pandora was one of the first ones with the music genome to use that. But as we get into generative AI and even more personalization, I do think that's a double-edged sword too. To your point, if the AI is always feeding us things that we like, how do we discover anything really new? In the news, more and more we're having AI voices that are reading the news, and studies that are now showing that you're more cognitively engaged with a human voice with news than an AI voice, which means more disinformation can happen when you're not as engaged. But the last place for me that's more interesting is how AI can help us use sound in ways that really benefit our lives in health and wellness. Technologies that doctors can use to prescribe a playlist as opposed to just prescribing pharma, and ways that AI can kind of tailor sounds depending on moods that can be really beneficial that way. So I think those are fascinating developments that we're just starting to touch.
In this space in particular, you can't help but think that in today's world, we treat hallucination with the models as a four-letter word. But when it comes to entertainment, hallucination can become unexpected creativity that produces things we never expected, and it becomes less than a four-letter word and more of a true creative partner that you never thought you had.
A lot of music was composed with hallucination, so maybe it's just a little more LSD in our AI, and maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah, I did a report on audio illusions. It's a very interesting thing, but I'm actually really hung up on the idea that the doctor might prescribe me 10 minutes of Nicki Minaj super bass every morning or something. Is that prescribed music? Yeah. So.
Okay, so not that we want to start talking about LSD and music hallucinations, though that could be a really entertaining company idea around a musical hallucination company, Choose Your Own Adventure. Stephen, you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, and so I'm going to skip the first part of your question. I'm going to go straight to, is there a potential for AI to create entirely new audio experiences for listeners? If so, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think, as humans, sometimes we're not aware of the impact that sound has on our perception. And so one area of research that I've been involved a lot is this idea of cross-modal science, where our senses can be combined and one sense can hack another, playing with things like, can I change your perception of how bitter or sweet a piece of chocolate tastes, depending on what we're putting in your ears? And so thinking about a connected home where AI may be able to adjust to volume, to mood, things where it could be designed to know who's at home, what's appropriate content to hear. There's all kinds of fascinating ways, I think, that in terms of our consumption habits, AI can feed into it. again, that's a two-edged sword, because I could also argue on the other side that maybe that personalization and that kind of playing with our biases to move us in a particular direction could be used for evil. So.
Can AI be used to change my lettuce to taste like chocolate?
No.
Please? Oh, okay, damn it. Brooke, Yahoo News is known for delivering timely, accurate news. How is AI changing the way news is curated, reported, and consumed?
I mean, it's such a big question. I feel like I could spend the next 20 minutes on it, but I will keep it brief. One of the ways, and it's not necessarily the most sexy that I am really embracing AI, is using it to free up editors to work on more impactful creative content. So things like that we don't want to think about, metadata and tagging, like things that can be taken over and off their plate so that they can be creating more engaging content. So that's very exciting for me. I think also, we have such a vast sea of publishers. We're talking about like where the line of personalization is. I think it gives us the opportunity to surface more diverse publishers from our ecosystem so that we're giving visibility to publishers that they might not have gotten otherwise. Another piece that like I said, I could keep going on, but that I'm really excited about is just, our key takeaways that are on top of articles where you could generate an AI summary of the story. What makes that distinct on Yahoo is that the content in that takeaway only comes from the article itself. It is a feature that was rigorously tested the same way we rigorously vet our publishers so that we could be assured it has journalism that we all feel good about and are proud of. And what has been surprising, it's been not surprising, but exciting, a win-win-win for us, for the publishers, and for the reader. People that read those summaries tend to spend more time on the article, and they read deeper and engage more. So I feel like the opportunities are endless, and we're excited to continue to watch it evolve.
Wow, so super exciting. Thank you. Eric, Cox Communications delivers content and services to millions of users. How are you seeing AI change your industry, and what does it mean to your customers?
Yeah, I think there's probably not a lot of, I think there's a lot of use of AI even today that people don't realize is AI, right? And so, today in all of our homes, our customers are using voice remotes to access the content that they want. In a lot of ways, our products and services are the gateway to the content that, our customers are looking to consume that you guys provide. And I even think about where we're going in the future relative to what we're going to have to start looking after. Like Steve was just talking about, a smart home that has become even smarter than what you think of it today. But the importance of a lot of what you see around the floor, even today at CES, around why models are getting smaller and why they're coming up with things like on-device AI. Well, in those scenarios, you want your home to be smart. You want those models to run locally on those devices because you don't want the data that it's collecting and using sent somewhere else. And so, there's a lot that I think is coming in the future relative to how you interact with our devices today, right? Today I use my remote to do a voice search, but it's very keyword based, right? In the future, it'll be very semantic based. And when you pair that with some of the personalization that comes in the future, you'll be able to ask it for horror movies that are appropriate for your 16-year-old that maybe don't have a lot of certain types of scenes in them, et cetera. And then if we get to a point where the content itself is tailored personally, maybe you can tell it to avoid showing me the things that I don't want to see in those movies also. But all of that has to be tailored through the gateway that we provide, right? Whether it's the set-top box, whether it's the smart home panel, et cetera.
Yeah, I love that. HP, you have been in the storytelling arena for such a long time. Talk me through how AI is transforming storytelling from your personal opinion.
Sure, I can talk a little bit briefly about the historical perspective of some of my current projects. One that I really was interested in when I first had access to some of these more powerful tools was content creation and game creation with AIs. And I started on this process of designing my own game with it in a collaborative session with ChatGPT. And what became fascinating to me was it was so, first of all, it was so amnesiac. It would forget about what we were talking about a lot. But once I feel like I conquered that, it was so interested in participating in all aspects of this game creation process, even when I tried to put it, hammer it down in some area. Like for instance, I would actually have it design some parts of the game engine, and it would start to get that right, and then I'd say, well, now let's walk through this scene that I've created, this world, and it would start to edit the world and adjust it as I was trying to debug the game engine part. And I kept correcting it, and I realized, maybe I'm fighting uphill on this. Maybe I'm thinking about content creation and engine creation in a too rigid way, and maybe AI will foretell a way of interacting with categories of jobs that don't even exist today.
Fascinating.
And maybe I'm just seeing the beginning of that with this personal scenario.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. Steve, back to you again. Would love to understand how you think AI is going to change recommendation engines. You touched on it a little bit before around if you're always being served the same thing over and over again, will you experience things outside of what an engine's recommending? So what is the right balance in that, and how do you foresee that unfolding?
I mean, I think that the AI potentially would be smart enough that if you begin to prompt it for, I want to hear something new that I haven't heard before, and in a particular genre. I think that the opportunity for it to work as a discovery engine is there. The question is whether we as humans would tap into that as much, or would we just be lazy taking in what it serves us because we like things that are familiar. So I think there's this delicate balance between what the AI is capable of, but in terms of our humanity and our behavior, how that's going to be shaped in the process. And I think that's the more interesting question to me that I don't see, we don't have enough research yet.
Yeah, we don't have the answer to that.
I think it is such an important question, and that in some sense, we do have control over what the algorithm is servicing. So Yahoo last spring bought Artifact, and what's exciting about the algorithm is how truly nuanced it is. I am not an engineer, so I always picture it like a DJ for sound folks, that there's just knobs you could turn, and you could turn up discovery, you could turn up what's new. And I think that is a tremendous responsibility of finding that balance so that you're surfacing not just what people want to see, but what they need to see or should see or might excite or interest them in ways that they hadn't yet known.
Well, and just to riff on that too, part of the problem as well is who is delivering the AI and what are their agendas. Because then when we get into a world where it's like, okay, we're priming the AI to give you this kind of content because we know we're going to get this kind of a response from you, and again, it's a loop that we can very easily get into.
There might be conflicting interests between those multiple parties about what we want that person to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, you may even get into a place where, given the race to organize your data as an important factor of how you go accomplish all of this AI stuff, we're never going to get to a point where we organize all of the world's data so perfectly. And then what happens is we're going to continue to leverage AI to sift through the unstructured data that's out there at the scale and speed that it can. And the challenge is you don't know what's in your unstructured data. And so you've got to be real careful about what it's ultimately going to serve up, so that layer of responsibility becomes super important.
Well, data is also biased, so we know that, right? It's point of view. Talking about bias, that leads me to our next question, and I would love to take the opportunity to ask you, Brooke. How do you ensure that AI tools that are being used maintain journalistic integrity and avoid some of the biases, from your personal opinion?
I mean, first, it is that balance between AI and editors. I think you need human involvement, that you need to find the balance. You can't just let the AI run the show. One of the advantages we have at Yahoo News is because we have such a vast array of premium publishers in terms of bias, we have almost every perspective on every topic that you could think of. So then it's up to an editor to curate the various perspectives so that you're not seeing it through just one lens. But I think it's just something that you have to have rigor around. And to go back to, who's in control of that? Like, you have to make it a priority for how you're using it, and it's a responsibility, especially in news, and one Yahoo News has taken incredibly seriously.
It's going to be a real challenge. It's not too bad now before the world of AGI, general intelligence. It's not as clear about how you manage intelligences that are 10 or 100 or 1,000 times smarter than you are. And we'll see how that all plays out.
Eric, coming for you next. Where do you see some of the inherent biases in your world of delivering content and services? What are some of the risks and concerns that keep you up at night?
Yeah, I think the risks are just inherent in the unknown nature of what all of these things can do, and ultimately with the ubiquitous access that people have to AI inside our company and outside, you just never know what's going to happen. And so I feel like we thankfully took a step a year and a half ago or so in terms of one of our first initiatives was to put in place some responsible AI practices. And I've heard a lot about that today. The last panel was all about scaling responsible AI, which I love. And core tenets of everything that we do ensure that the AI that we use or the AI that we create ultimately falls under four principles. It has to be governed, it has to be harmless, it has to be secure, and it has to be monitored. Yeah. And if you don't do any of those four things, plus a whole host of other things, then you can't do it because the risks are too great relative to, not the necessary probability of something happening, because all it has to happen is once.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, I love that. HP, I wanted to talk a little bit about maintaining the right creative balance between humans and machine. As a storyteller, how do you see that playing out? How do we ensure that if we do go down the route of hyper-personalized content, story, how do we keep humans involved in that? What is your thoughts on that?
Where we are today, and where we've been for several years, especially during the days I was very heavily involved with CGI, was the AIs will be extraordinary at relatively repetitive tools like helping with motion capture, wire removal, script support and things. In terms of, you take a series like Game of Thrones with hundreds of characters, and they forget that they killed off somebody in scene, 3, episode 4, and then 2 months later they want him to say something to somebody else. They go, no, the AI can prompt you, no, we killed that person off. So it doesn't sound like a real world case, but it could very well be. So I think it's going to be like having an extraordinarily talented intern.
Yeah.
I saw something, I saw a story where they helped one of the people cleaning in the restaurant. They asked her if she'd help slice up potatoes, and it turned out she was an amazing chef, that she had moved here from another country, and she transformed that restaurant. And what we're going to find with the AI is it's going to be better and better at some of these things that we don't think it's capable of, and it's going to shine. Now, the question is right now where we are today, these stories, clearly you see they don't have as much emotional intelligence or depth or AIs haven't experienced human pains and wisdom, so they don't have life experiences to be able to tell these things. But the question is are we going to be able to distinguish them in the years going forward? Yep. And we're not going to know them when we see them. We're going to know the ones that are poor, but are we even going to recognize the ones that are good? Yep. My partner is a notable plastic surgeon, and people can see not good plastic surgery, but really good plastic surgery is beautiful. It's flawless. You can't see anything. So are we going to see the same thing with storytelling, where the story is going to have real depth and beauty, and we just won't know what role AI played in those?
The question is, how would you feel in the audience if you were interacting with a fully generated AI story you didn't know? Would that make you feel good, bad, if you had time to really think about? Does it need to be announced that you're interacting with an AI-driven? Show of hands, actually. Who is in the camp of AI, you need to interact with something and you need to know that it's AI versus you wouldn't? Okay. And what about AI not making itself known and you wouldn't mind? Okay, so the majority still. All right, it's really good to see. I always like to get audience participation to just know that if you're coming to one of my talks.
I mean, I do think that right now, AI doesn't have taste. And
neither do a lot of humans. Yes.
yes, that's true. But that's why when we're building a team, I'm looking for someone with strong editorial judgment. AI could not tell you who was best dressed at the Globes. That was Zendaya. And so I think that's why it's the importance of, in any storytelling, having that editorial judgment layered on. I think it will continue to evolve and we'll need to evolve with it. But right now, I feel like we could still sniff it out.
So let's stay on that for a second, because one of your questions is around looking ahead and seeing how AI will evolve in your industry. What are some of your thoughts around that?
I mean, I would have had one answer before walking the floor, and now my brain is I'm like, we're gonna have robot dogs that will deliver your newspaper. I think voice is really, really interesting. I think it's interesting what you said about that people don't enjoy interacting with an AI voice. I'm chatting with ChatGPT all day. I think that if that was a conversation that was out loud, not to feel like everyone's always and my kid, but my Gen Alpha kid, anytime he is talking to a phone, it's always through voice. I don't know if he could type or spell, but that's a story for another time. But so I do think that the interface in which we engage with news, like you were talking about, did the Game of Thrones character die, is being able to ask questions about the news and get responses and be able to go deeper in the way that you would with search, I think will be an interesting evolution.
I mean, my child is growing up in a world, and I watch her interact with things that aren't voice-enabled today, and she is genuinely surprised when it doesn't respond when she asks it a question. She's like, "Dad, this thing's broken." I'm like, "No, that just doesn't do that."
Do you know the changing point for me was I travel a lot for work, and Alexa's in my house, and when I come home, I normally get scared turning on the lights. Clearly no one's in my building. Clearly no one's in my apartment, but there's that one moment when you open the door and you're like, hello, is anybody there? And for me, Alexa is just, hey, Alexa, I'm home, turn the lights on, whatever it may be, Alexa, lights on. And
you just turned the lights on.
Yeah. So anyway, device triggers. But that was the moment I realized, because I felt not afraid, that I had already formed some sort of attachment or feeling like there was someone with me, even though it wasn't a someone. And that's a device that doesn't have conversational application where I can talk back and forth for long periods of time. So, Stephen, what are you seeing next in the field? What are you most excited about?
Well, I think that there's some real interesting opportunities for applications. Let's say if I'm listening to a Neil deGrasse Tyson podcast, and he's talking about wormholes, and I want to know more, I can say, hey, Neil, tell me more about wormholes. And he can have a cloned voice that will then kind of give me more information. I think that's a really interesting application. I think, again, this world of healthcare is fascinating to me. I think there are some really interesting developments there. And also automotive. I think keep your eye on automotive, because I think that's where the really interesting tech is being developed. You have automobiles that they're creating more and more immersive environments as we get closer to self-driving. The vehicle isn't just about transportation. It can be about entertainment. It can be about work. It can be about relaxation, and all the different ways that even now vehicles are using sound, knowing from biometric data what kind of mood you're in, tailoring things. If it senses you're getting ready to fall asleep, there can be an audio component for that. If you're experiencing motion sickness, we already have this. We have a soundscape that can counteract motion sickness. Yeah. So I think those kinds of things are really fascinating to me, probably more so than listening to music in the background, because I'd rather just grab a vinyl album and put it on the turntable.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'd like an interactive book. When you read a book from your favorite author, there's certain chapters you want to spend more time in, and there's certain chapters you'd just rather skip. HP, what about yourself? Where do you see the future?
Well, notwithstanding a couple of decades of making movies with really terrible endings related to humanoid robots in and around us, if you set that aside for a moment, that's, I think, what I'm most excited about. seeing these agile humanoid robots in the house that somebody can buy will just transform society in ways that we can't even imagine. Age tech, having a robot that can help, bring you to the bathroom, do some light cooking, drive you somewhere in a conventional car. You don't need a special car to do it. Go up and down the stairs, carry, lifting, do laundry. It's going to be just tremendous for how the world will change with that being readily available and priced well. I'm fascinated by a lot of the same ones that you guys have mentioned as well. I think the tedium of kind of the min-maxing that people like to do, like just planning efficient flights and travel, things that travel agents might have done for us in the past that we've now given up and we don't even know, and there's a whole generation doesn't even know that even existed, we'll be able to have again. Yeah. And it'll work and it'll follow your patterns. It'll min-max the way you want it to be done for what you're trying to optimize.
Recipes for dinner. I like AI for that.
Just cooking the dinner.
Yeah. My partner and I have this foodie diet. So we get there's 5 dice, gives you the ingredients. We can go to AI and say, give me a 3-course French meal that I can cook at home and a bottle of wine with these ingredients. And it does a really good job. And the recipes.
And it will give you an appropriate soundtrack to your cooking.
For
yes,
the mood,
it will do that as well.
I had it basically inventing cocktails on the fly. Yes. And I would make whatever it told me to make, and they seem good.
Your partner walks in and you're in a bad mood. They just know it's like dun 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 dun. As they get closer to you, you're in trouble. What about yourself, Stephen?
I'll keep it brief, given the clock is ticking here, right? Yeah. I think I am enjoying very much the fact that the world is redefining the term personalization. Yeah. And I love the fact that we have a prime opportunity to sit in the middle of how we ultimately market and communicate to our customers, how they consume content in terms of media and entertainment, and how we deliver those services to them in the home. Making that triangle as seamless as possible ultimately has to be done because it's going to be an expectation. But leveraging all of these things that come out every day that you didn't know existed 12 hours ago is the most exciting thing that I think sits in front of us, and it's what gets me out of bed every morning and running to the office.
Yeah, I think personalization is quite interesting, and I know we're pretty much out of time because we've put people in categories, right, for quite so long. Personas. If one more person comes to me with persona marketing architecture, I will freak out. But I think we've got the opportunity to go so much further past that, so much deeper into the human experience and create things that are destined for that.
Everything will be a segment of one.
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, everybody, please follow these amazing speakers. Not only are they pioneering the space, but they are just a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for joining our session. Thank you to our MCs who are amazing, and thank you to Motive for hosting us today. We truly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. Enjoy CES.
Thank you.
Let's give them a round of applause.